Folks, welcome back to another episode of The Fallen Badge. Today we're going to look at the murder of Detective Ricky Childers, Detective Randy Bell, Trooper James Crooks, Tampa Police Department, Florida Highway Patrol. Detective Ricky Childers was 46 years of age. Now, he had 18 years on with Tampa Police Department, and he was assigned to Homicide Division. He had a wife and he had some kids. Detective Randy Bell was 44 years of age. Now, he had 21 years on the job. He was married and had kids. Trooper James Crooks, he was engaged to be married. He was only 23 years old. He had 9 months on with the Florida Highway Patrol. And as always, this is another really sad story of good people trying to make a difference and running into someone that is going in the opposite direction. Now, the suspect involved in this, he was absolutely no good. He was cruel to women he was associated with. And that cruelty even extended to their children. Now, it was said of him by a defense attorney that had formerly been a police officer. He said that the suspect evidently wanted to go straight to hell, and he didn't want to wait in line. And I would think that about sums it up for this fellow we're going to be talking about today. In just a matter of a few hours, he was going to destroy the lives of a lot of people. It's May 19th, 1998. It's about 9:50 in the morning. A man and a woman pull into the fire station. I believe it's fire station number 7 there at Nebraska Avenue and Hannah Street. And with them they were carrying a little boy. Now, the little boy, he had a gunshot wound to the head. Now, the man, who's our suspect, he told the fire department and then later told officers that made the scene at the firehouse that he was the father to the little boy. Now, we're going to find out that's a lie. That's just one of many lies our suspect's going to tell. In fact, his life that's all it is a bunch of lies. Now, the suspect's going to give conflicting stories to the fire department and to the police department about how the little boy was shot. One story he's going to tell is that the little boy was dragging the rifle around, and the rifle accidentally discharged. He would then change that story later and say that he was holding the rifle himself when it went off. Now, considering his checkered history with alcohol and drugs, there's no telling what the actual cause was other than pure neglect, because neither one of those stories sounds very good. Now, the couple lived at 709 and a half East Crenshaw Street. Now, that's just a few blocks away from the firehouse. That's where the shooting had occurred. Now, once the fire department confirms to the man and woman that the little boy is dead and there's nothing they can do, the suspect, he jumps back in his car and he heads back over to his residence there on Crenshaw. The officers went over to that address and they caught up with him there. Now, while they're talking to him at the house, suspect takes off running. Now, he runs pretty well southbound right near Nebraska Avenue. Now, after a few minutes, the police see him hiding in a clump of bushes there along Norfolk Street. Now, that's just about a quarter of a mile from the apartment they're living in. Now, from there, the suspect is transported down to the Tampa Police Department, which is downtown Tampa. Now, the detectives assigned to investigate the case are Detective Childers and Detective Bell. Now, they're talking to the suspect there at the station, and they're operating under the assumption that the suspect is the father of the child, which he is not. And now his girlfriend, who is the mother of the child, she has not told the police the real identity of the suspect. That lack of cooperation would later cost the female 20 years in prison. Now, another homicide investigator with Tampa would later say that he thought how the suspect was treated probably had something to do with sympathy from Detective Childers and Detective Bell, who themselves were fathers and who they assumed was the father, and that they operated with that belief that how they would feel if they had brought harm to one of their children. Now, it turns out the suspect has got warrants in other states. He's got a violent felony history, and that includes clashes with the police. He is very antisocial, anti-police, and he spent a few years in prison. So everything that the two detectives believe the suspect to be is a lie. They also are unaware of his history of domestic violence towards his partners and their children. Now, the news media had gotten up to the scene, and in fact, they actually filmed the arrest or the detention of the suspect when he initially took off running, and he was caught. Now, at some point during the interview, the suspect is taken back to the scene by Detective Childers and Bell. There's also uniformed patrol officers on the scene as well, and they're going to do a walkthrough of the scene, which is basically they're going to have the suspect literally walk the police through everything that happened. And what you're going to do with that is you're going to see if what the suspect says, if it actually matches up to what the crime scene says happened. Now, while they're on that scene, there was video allegedly captured by the media of the suspect slipping one of the handcuffs off his hand, and that it was either Detective Childers or Detective Bell that caught him doing it and got on to him about slipping out of his handcuffs. Now, the suspect told the investigator that the handcuff had slipped off because it was wet. Now, even though we're operating under the belief this is actually the father of the child and he is actually grief-stricken and etc., I would begin to worry about someone that has left the scene of the firehouse and then left the scene of his residence, and he's attempting to get, or actually did achieve, getting a handcuff off one of his wrists. I would begin to worry that this suspect is a flight risk. So now, while they're at the residence, they recover some rifles on the scene. One rifle in particular is the one that was involved in the death of the child. Now, that weapon and the magazine that went with it was carried out of the house and placed in the back of Detective Childers and Detective Bell's unmarked cruiser, and the media was there to capture it. Now, it's also a comparison of the suspect and the handcuffs that he's wearing, because once he's captured the first time, when he took off running, when he was taken downtown, his handcuffs were behind him. Well, as he's walking through the scene, the handcuffs are in front of him, which is generally frowned upon by police departments. And that would come out later. There would be a great debate about whether the investigator should have let the suspect have his handcuffs in front. Now, this is 98. I was in a gang unit in Memphis when this came out, and we watched the video of this in service. And for the rest of my career, what I saw in this video and the results of it influenced how I operated. And I never let any suspect have handcuffs in the front, all because of this event right here. So the tragedy, and then there is the learning. What happened here is going to save the lives of other officers. All right, so they're getting ready to go back downtown. Now, Detective Childers is driving, and in the pictures you can see that he is wearing a hog leg or a shoulder holster, and the pistol rests under his left arm, so he can draw across with his right hand. Now, Detective Bell is going to get in the passenger seat. Suspect's going to sit in the left rear seat directly behind the driver, handcuffs still in front. So at around 2 p.m., investigators are driving downtown. Now, they get off of Interstate 275 on the Flora-Braska Avenue exit route. Now, it's at this moment that the suspect had a handcuff key. Now, some of the resource material says the handcuff key was in his pocket. Others say it was around his neck on a chain. Wherever it was, the suspect got to the handcuff key, and he got the handcuff off of at least one of his wrists. He then reaches up and he's able to get Detective Childers' pistol out of his shoulder holster. Now, the Tampa police theorize that he probably reached through on the driver's side door to grab the pistol. Don't know what he did with his other hand. I don't know if he grabbed Childers with his right hand and arm and then was able to get the gun loose, but in any event, he's able to get the pistol out of Detective Childers' shoulder holster. Now, Detective Bell turns around and attempts to climb over the back seat to get to the suspect. Now, the suspect's able to shoot Detective Childers and Detective Bell, both of them in the head, and both die immediately. Now, all this is going on. Several people in their houses noticed something going on out on the street. One witness in particular saw the Ford Taurus sitting in the middle of the street. Now, the suspect has already gotten out of the car, and my understanding is he got both detectives' pistols. There is a white Ford Ranger pickup truck behind him. He then carjacks that vehicle. He gets his semi-automatic rifle out of the trunk of the officer's vehicle. So now he's got 3 firearms with him. Loads them up in the truck and he leaves. Now, that's when this witness from one of the houses runs out. He runs up to the car and he looks in. And he said Detective Childers was leaning against the door and Detective Bell was lying across the back seat. The witness said it appeared that he was reaching for something in the back. And he said it was obvious to him that both officers were dead. Now, the suspect, after he's carjacked the pickup truck, the resource material varies a little. Some of it actually says that after leaving the shooting scene, he drives to his mother's residence, and he stops at a gas station and gets gas, and then he gets on Interstate 75 and he heads north. The resource material merely states that he left the shooting scene and he went northbound on I-75. So now he's on 275 and he gets into Pasco County, Florida. And the first officer to take up the pursuit is Trooper James Crooks. So now they're running hot and heavy down the interstate. Now at some point, the suspect, he whips onto an exit ramp. Now this is about 2:30 in the evening or so, 2:45. And that exit is for State Road 54. It's the Wesley Chapel exit. And when he gets off that exit, he goes down just a little bit and then he whips over to the side and he stops and he gets out of his truck. Well, the trooper's coming along and you can't see all the way down the ramp when you're on the interstate. It's not till you start to get off the exit you can see down the ramp. Now, according to a witness, the suspect was out of the truck and he started walking back towards the trooper car. And the suspect fired 2 rounds from his rifle. And both rounds were fired from the passenger side of the trooper car. And the Trooper Crooks is hit in the head and he's now dead on the scene. Now, this same witness said that there was a white truck that came off the interstate in a big hurry, and it actually tried to run over the suspect. This other white truck, driver unknown, missed the suspect, but he clipped part of the suspect's truck. Now, this witness said he got out of his car because he saw the trooper's car start to roll down the exit. He got up there and the passenger side window was shot out, and he jumped in and he thought he put the car in park, but it kept moving, so he jammed on the brakes and he jammed it into park again. So now the suspect has continued on. He gets back on I-275 and he's still heading north. Well, now he's getting into Hernando County, Florida. Well, their sheriff's department, they're waiting at the line for him. And he hits that county line about 3 p.m. Now, they put out stop sticks across the interstate. And it punctures the tires on the suspect's truck. Now, during this chase, the suspect fires at the sheriff's department helicopter and hits it. Now, also during this chase, according to the suspect, who would later give an interview to the media while he was holed up in the store that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, suspect's going to claim that every overpass he went under as he's going along the interstate, there are police officers cranking off rounds at him and his truck. Now, that was neither confirmed nor denied by all the police agencies involved. Now, finally, the suspect, he decides to get off the interstate, and he gets off there at the exit for State Road 50. And he came off the exit and went across the median, I can only assume, and pulled up beside what at the time was a Shell convenience store. So he runs inside the store and he's cranking off rounds because there's police rolling up on him. And now, what the suspect didn't mention in his rambling story to a local radio station over the phone was that he'd shot up a few police cars of his own. So the police were just giving back what the suspect was giving them. Now he gets inside the store and he takes a hostage. It's the clerk inside of there. Now for the next 4 or 5 hours, there's no shots fired. And the sheriff's department there in Hernando County, they're negotiating with the suspect. Now, before they can get the phone company to fix the phones where no one else could call in or prevent the suspect from calling out, that's when the suspect has a conversation with the radio station. They called into the store, which is not a very smart thing to do, but so he does his little interview with the media. Then the police get the phone lines fixed, and then they're talking to the suspect and no one else. So now the suspect's made a request. He wants to talk to his wife. Well, that's not his wife, it's his girlfriend, but he's carried on this facade that he's a married man. Now, generally, negotiators usually don't let family talk to a hostage taker because they never know what they're going to do or what's going to be said or if it's going to enrage the hostage taker, because they don't want that hostage to be harmed. Well, anyway, she talks to him and they get done with all that business. Now, at around 7:30 in the evening, suspect, he releases the hostage, and she runs out of the store, across the parking lot, across Highway 50, which I believe that'd be the westbound lanes, goes into the median. Police officers get her there and then run her back to safety. Now, it ain't but a few minutes after the hostage has been released that the Hernando Sheriff's Department, they lobby in 5 canisters of tear gas. I say lobby, and they shot them in. So now they got tear gas in the building. Now, according to the resource material, Tampa police are on the scene, as every jurisdiction within 50 miles is on the scene. But Tampa police, they bring their bomb squad up there. Now, they set up 2 breach charges, one on that, what I believe to be the west wall, and one on the north wall. So that's one on the side to be to the left if you're facing the store, and the other one's on the back of the store wall. And from resource material, that breach charge is a triangular shaped charge. Now, it's designed to blow holes in walls. So they set off the one on the side wall, and then they set off the one in the back. And then before the smoke's even cleared, Hernando's sending in their TAC unit, and they going in the front door. Now they go through and they clear the store, and they find the suspect there at the back of the store, near where one of the explosives had went off. Now he's DOA, and he's dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now the enemy would later say that the suspect had been hit once by police gunfire, and it showed to be a .40 caliber bullet. Now that round had went through his lower back, and the bullet was resting up against the spine. Detective Ricky Joe Childers, Detective Randy Scott Bell, Trooper James Bradford Gene Crooks. End of watch, May 19th, 1998.